Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is a man by the name of Gary Bloom. He's a science fiction author and mobile games developer. Welcome to the show, Gary. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right.
I'm glad to have you here. I'm obviously very excited to talk about science fiction in general because I'm a massive nerd. So,
Same here.
I already saw in the background while we were speaking beforehand that you've got like a Superman poster
Oh
there.
yeah. I've got
Posters.
that's a Superman poster my in-laws got me that's printed on wood, and it's surrounded by that's
Oh,
Superman #1 from the '80s, and that's Superman Man of Steel #1 from the '90s.
is that like the
So yeah,
original,
pretty
or
nerdy.
is it like the
Here, I'll
original?
give you. Let me see if I can give you a close-up. Not the original from back like the first one, but here I'll give you a quick tour of the office. All right, so there's Man of
Wow.
Steel from the '90s. And there's my '80s #1, right? And
Awesome.
then there's the Funko collection with one of my buddies. Maybe this you can see Nightwing comic books that are actually printed on the back. There's the Lego stash, and then there's my Nightwing cutout that I got as a birthday gift off of Etsy. So
That's so awesome, man.
yeah, I'm a pretty nerdy guy and quite proud of it.
I hear that, man. I hear that. You were nerdy before it was cool to be nerd. Now everyone's a nerd.
That's what, you
You
know,
know what
what's
I mean?
funny, you say that. My best friend and I talk about the fact that it's like we were nerds and geeks before Big
Yeah.
Bang Theory came out, before it was like cool to be, like we would go, what were we, 9 years old? I don't know what our parents were thinking. We were 9 years old, and we would ride our bikes, I don't know, like 4 or 5 miles across town to downtown to go to this place, the Comic Vault, and get our
Cool.
comic books. And yeah, I mean, we played Star Wars the role playing game, the first generation of it, and we were huge Star Wars nuts. He had literally every original Star Wars toy except for I think 2 figures and 1 vehicle.
Mm.
And then he had a massive like just vehicle fight with him a couple years ago. So and just obliterated half of his collection for the fun of it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was the same growing up. I was a complete nerd, but like I don't know. I always kind of saw it as a strange thing because with like most comic books, and just science fiction in general,
Yep.
like if you're a boy, I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be a boy thing,
Sure,
boys
yeah.
and girls, whatever, right? But like generally speaking, if you're growing up and you're reading like Superman or you're watching the Star Wars movies or whatever,
Yeah.
like it's badass. Like how as a kid could you not enjoy that? Even if you're a guy that's like, I don't know, into sports or something,
Sure.
like it's two
Which
people destroying each other. What's not
yeah.
cool about that?
That's what I try to, I have people who don't get it sometimes because I mean, I am a huge basketball nerd.
Cool. Okay.
I'm like I'm an NBA fan, I'm a college fan, and I love all, not just watching it, but all the background aspects to it. And yet, like I'm a lacrosse season ticket owner,
Oh
and I
wow.
can quote lines from Star Wars movies, and I've seen science fiction movies that other people go, what's that? Who, I've never heard of that. And that's, I mean, listen, my 6-year-old, I just finally let her see for the first time local station, or I know you're in the UK, US station TNT. I
Yes.
guess is doing a marathon today. So she caught the last 10-15 minutes of Clone Wars, and we started watching Revenge of the
Ah.
Sith, and she's going, this is really cool. And she's asking me questions. And it's funny because, I've fought against for so long, she's only known that there were 3 movies. And yet we've got, like, I mean, that
Ah.
entire, all those Legos in that case over there that I just showed you, those are all Star Wars Legos, and she and I put them together. And
Oh.
she's like, she has her own little Yoda impression. She'll go, Yoda, yes. And that's just like, she loves Yoda. She knows if somebody asks her, what's daddy's, because she loves Disney princesses, what's daddy's favorite Disney princess? Princess Leia. So
Nice.
and it's,
Nice.
but it was funny sitting here, like, she's asking me these different questions about Revenge of the Sith, and I'm explaining, I'm like, maybe I can't believe I'm saying
Hmm.
these words out loud, but maybe this is kind of cool. It's like I've had my bias against the prequels for years, and now it's like, here's the next generation. I mean, she knows that when Daddy finishes with the podcast interview, we're going to the comic book shop because it's Saturday, and we go to the comic book shop on Saturdays.
Oh
And
man,
it's
that's so
just, I
cool.
mean, that's, the guy at the shop loves her.
Yeah.
and like he pulls stuff for her if he sees stuff that he thinks will be cool. He's like, here, this one, I'm gonna give this to you for half price. Let me know if she likes it. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's just it's there's just something about that nerdiness that it's like it's so ingrained in us,
Mm.
that it makes me happy. And yet, like I said, Saturdays are meant for the comic book shop, and then Sunday she has her lacrosse lesson. And I want her to understand, like, it is okay to be well-rounded. Like, we are in my
Yeah.
family, it's music and science fiction and sports, and all three work well together. I mean, my wife's a chef, and she used to make cake pops, and she actually made me little um, TIE fighters one year, to like TIE fighters on a stick for May the 4th, just because she's like, hey, I didn't want you to think I left you out. It's Star Wars Day. Here you go. And it was really cool. It's like little TIE fighters and Death Stars. It's like, this is awesome. So,
Best wife ever.
oh, no joke. Like, no joke. Seriously, when Pacific Rim came out, we were on vacation. I was taking her on vacation for her birthday. It was, before my daughter was born, and I took her out. We did like this big, we did a barbecue vacation in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Pacific Rim came out. So she took me. She's like, surprise. And then she goes, do you trust me? I was like, yeah, I trust you. She goes, I plugged an address into the GPS. I want you to let me drive. And she took me to a comic book shop. Like,
No
we're
way.
just, I mean, we've been to local Comic Cons, and she actually wants to do New York Comic Con hopefully in the next year or two, because we think the small fry is old enough. I've taken her to some local ones and stuff like that. And yeah, so yeah, absolutely best wife ever, and she's embraced the hell out of all this. So I am I'm so lucky. I
Oh
mean, she doesn't
man.
care about the fact that like I walk around in I got my Megatron T-shirt,
Oh
for those
wow.
who get it. So it's Mega, but he's doing the Tron pose.
Cool.
If you want, I'll send you the link to where I got it.
Yeah, well, why not? Why not? No, I envy you, man. I would love to meet a girl like that, or just in general. I've been single a long time, but like to meet someone that would be into like all of those things. Like I see this online. I see girls online that are like that, but like you never meet people like that in real life. Like I don't know, you know what I mean? Like most girls I
Yeah,
meet, it's like they're just not into that stuff.
yeah.
So,
You know what? I mean, I'm definitely lucky. But it's just it's kind of cool because it's
mm,
become the dynamic in our family. It's like, between and we're hoping that my daughter one day gets into. I mean, she's 6, so she's still, chicken nuggets, ham roll ups, and French fries. But we're hoping that one day she embraces food the way we do, and then there's 4 pillars in the house. But really, I mean, everything is we watch football on Sundays, and the running joke has always been, because my wife is more hardcore than I am. My daughter has learned about football growing up sitting next to me. She's learned about cursing
oh,
sitting next to her
wow.
mother. It's like, Daddy, why is Mommy angry at the Giants? It's a long story, kiddo. So yeah, but yeah.
Oh man, that is like heartwarming to hear. I mean, it's cool that I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's good to be all rounded and just sort of.
I think
I
so.
think that's the problem that many parents have is they don't always they want to keep their kids away from certain things, but it's like if you're
Yeah.
introducing them to what you're into. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like me. Like I was born in the early '90s, but
Okay.
like all the music I remember listening to, like it was all my mum's record collection. Just all
Yep.
sorts of stuff. But I remember what I would deem as like my childhood was like '70s, '80s, '90s music, mostly
Sure.
'90s. So like stuff like the Smiths or like I don't know,
Yeah.
Joy Division or something like that. And it's like technically that was before my time, but it's like what I remember listening to growing up. So it's
Yeah.
like, and you always have a nostalgia for that, regardless of whether or not that becomes what you're into. You always remember what your parents introduced you to.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, she's lucky because I mean so my father's a guitarist. I'm a guitarist. My brother's a drummer. Right. My dad raised us on the Who and Eric Clapton and the Stones, and he
Yeah.
let us pick up our other stuff later. And so my wife is even more well-rounded than I am. So it's funny because my daughter will pick up, and my wife's very into 80s stuff. She's an 80s kid. I'm an 80s kid. Um, but it's like my daughter, there's dance music now that she loves. She loves the Descendants movies. I have watched, and I'll be honest, that's part of what I try to embrace is I have seen the Disney three Descendants movies probably at least 100 times each, and I can quote stuff from it. I know who the character, like I've learned who they are, so she can talk to me about that because I don't want it to be just me pushing on to her. And there's music from that she just loves, and those are those are her songs. But then like my wife has introduced her to 80s and 90s hip hop and rap, and then but I used to sing her Beatles songs when she was a baby,
Mm.
and like I'll pick up the guitar and she will sing 8 days a week with me.
Cool.
And and she like there's a couple Tom Petty songs she likes and ZZ Top songs that she likes, and and like she can pick out George Michael. She knows
Wow.
George Michael's voice, yeah, and she's 6. So that's we very much believe in that. It's that you know we want to introduce you to the stuff that we love, but we also want you to find the stuff that you love as well,
Mm.
because the more that you know and the more that you embrace, the more she's that kid that meets somebody on the playground and that's her new best friend, and she won't see them on the
Yeah.
playground for 5 months, and we go back and it's, oh hey, it's Audrey, you know
Wow.
and it's she, and she wants to, and I love that we're, and my parents were very much like that, that it's, here's music that we like, here are shows that we like, here are things that we like, but find your own thing. My parents are very, very big mystery readers,
Mm.
and but they never cared what I read as long as I was reading, as long as I developed an enjoyment for reading. So I mean, and when my dad saw that I got into science fiction, I mean, he's the one who bought me my copy of what's it, oh god, I just drew a blank. Heinlein, Stranger from Another World, right? The one of the greatest sci-fi books of all time. And he bought me. He saw I was getting into comic books, and he actually got me this book. He went to his parents' house and got this hardcover book that he grew up with, that had like the original Human Torch and the original Green Lantern and Origin of
Wow.
Shazam and Jay Garrick, the original Flash. And he's like, yeah, you should know this stuff too. And it's just it's some of the coolest stuff ever. And that's why, like, I love that she discovers things, she finds things, but then it allows me to show her stuff of, oh, this is what, I have I've got a combiner on my little stand over there. That's who is it? Computron. And so she's like, "What is this? I want to play with this." And so I'm getting her a transformer for Hanukkah, and I'm getting my nephew a transformer for Hanukkah. But she also wanted to see, and I showed her the original show a little bit. This is really cool. Can we watch more of this? And she like, we saw My Little Pony the movie, which is this whole Patton Oswalt, the comedian Patton Oswalt, actually does a little bit of a routine on just the mythology of it. And he talks about how it's like he's got his Star Wars and he knows his mythology and he can't get into another mythology. Except that he starts talking about, I'm like, oh my God, I've actually learned all of this stuff too. And so it's fun. But that's why it's like the fact that she's reading now and starting to learn this stuff. And she's got like a book called I Am a Princess, and it's about Princess Leia. And
Oh
and
wow.
she's, yeah, like
I had no
she's
idea that
just,
Disney was doing stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
so they license a lot of stuff to Little Golden Books, and
okay.
and so she's got the entire original and prequel trilogies as Little Golden Books, and then she's got
Oh.
some one-off books, and it's, I mean, and what's funny to me is that she's very creative. Now she likes to write. She tries to write her own stories. She tries to do her own artwork. For a father who had his own comic book company for a year and a half, that's kind of pleasing. Um, and but I love it because she hears this stuff and we read her this stuff, you know what I mean? Like, to me, growing up reading Michael A. Stackpole, and then when Heir to the Empire came out, and I mean, I am a huge Timothy Zahn nut, and like all of these different folks. I read Hyperion growing up, and anybody who hasn't read, it's not as famous, but if you haven't read Hyperion, there's 4 books. Dan Simmons, oh my God, you have to read it. I grew up reading Dragonlance, and Weiss and Hickman, and the Seventh Gate Cycle, and it's like all of this stuff. It wasn't just entertainment for me; it just contributed to the things that I ended up creating, because it made me think, oh, they did this, but they never really explored that concept, or what if this happened instead? And now I hear my daughter doing like well, Daddy, what if this instead? I'm like, oh yeah, let's go down. Let's talk about that. Like, let's spend the next 10 minutes talking about that. That's really cool. So it's kind of nice to see the next generation doing it. So
Speaking of the next generation, obviously you mentioned within that you grew up on the original Star Wars movies. So did I. I mean, I suppose technically, the prequel trilogy was like my trilogy, but like every kid, you grow up on the original trilogy. I
sure,
think
yeah.
I was like somewhere between 7 or 8. I think when Phantom Menace came out.
What was that 90, 95? No, later than that.
So I was born in '93.
Okay,
Phantom Menace came out in
2000.
no, I think it was 1999.
Okay,
Just,
let's
but
see.
I remember watching because here's my memories.
Yep, May 19th of 99. You got it.
I remember my dad when I was 6 or 7. Like I saw the trilogy, the original trilogy, when I was like 6 or something, and I loved it. And there's a couple of I've never actually spoken about this ever. I might as well just say this. Yeah. So here's some memories of when I was a kid with Star Wars, right? So my dad bought me like this massive Millennium Falcon. It was huge. It was probably the best gift I ever got as a kid growing up. I just hours of entertainment. Just
Yeah.
I had all of the. I think I still might have some of those original figures now because there was when the re-releases came out in the 90s. I think they went crazy with the merchandise, and then that's when they had all the original stuff
Sure, yeah.
being pumped out. And then it kind of makes sense because then Phantom Menace came out, so then you got all this new stuff and blah blah blah. But I'd seen them beforehand, and I remember as well there was because I grew up in London, so
Yep.
there was okay, so there's this place in London called Barbican, which has like I guess like art galleries and stuff like that. Like my mum took me to a lot of art galleries when I was a kid, and
That's
so
cool.
love that stuff. And but one time they did an installation exhibition, like a one-time limited only thing of Star Wars,
Oh,
and
amazing.
it was incredible. Basically, as I understand, it was all of the original costumes used in the original trilogy in like all these glass boxes and stuff and all the props and everything. And I remember seeing Boba Fett. I remember that very clearly. And I'll never forget this. The room where they put Darth Vader, they deliberately made it dark. They put him in his own chamber,
Yeah.
and they lit it with like red lighting and stuff. And they pumped in the sound of the.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I walked in and I'm just staring at like this like 8-foot figure, and I was genuinely scared. I knew it wasn't real, but I was like, wow, they really did a good job of making you feel like the terror that you would feel if you were standing there and
That's
Darth
amazing.
Vader's there. Yeah, no, it really was. And I think from the combination of that and playing with the figures and the movies themselves, I became a fan off of that. So then obviously when the new trilogy came out, I was ready for it.
Sure.
I think as I became a teenager, I started to critique them a little bit because I remember Attack of the Clones coming out. I was about 10 or 11
Okay.
ish. But it was when Revenge of the Sith came out that we all started sitting there going like, what do we think of this? How does it compare? Blah, blah, blah. And like, I'll be honest, I saw it in the cinema. I thought
Yep.
it was epic. I still think it's epic.
Yeah.
It's flawed, but of the prequel trilogy, I think it's arguably the best. I think it very much kind of salvaged saved it in many ways. But yeah, I think the prequels get a lot of hate. But and this kind of leads me to the question I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
It's not just about the sequels. It's what do you kind of think about modern Star Wars now? Because obviously you grew up with the original trilogy.
Sure, yeah.
You saw the prequels. You sort of said there that you weren't as fond of them.
Yep.
But like there seems to be a lot of people angry with the sequels right now, and I've spoken with other guests on the podcast about this. I've mentioned things like The Mandalorian and my thoughts on that, and Rebels, Clone Wars, as you mentioned before.
Yep.
So, like, what do you think in general of how Disney is kind of handling Star Wars right now?
So I'd say first of all, I don't really have tons of issues with the way that Disney's handling Star Wars. my viewing of The Mandalorian has been a little bit slower because my wife decided that she wanted to watch it.
Cool.
Like we, you know, when season one came out, she's like, "We should watch this." Yeah, I'm like, yes, we should. So, and I mean, like here we are. I'm working a full-time job,
Yeah.
and I've got a Kickstarter for this game, and I write the sci-fi series, and my wife's starting her own business, and so it's not sort of we're on a regular schedule with it yet, so we're a few episodes behind, but we still maintain it's one of the best things out there. I mean, we're huge Jon Favreau fans.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize, as much as the Marvel hero movies are just a given now, I don't think people realize just how much they owe to Jon Favreau
Mm.
starting all of this. Like everybody says, "Oh, well, it's RVD is who." It's like, yes, he was a central figure here, but Favreau was that guy who did the first movie, and I think it's just like that high level of quality that Iron Man was when it first came out. It's just kind of leapt forward, and the way that he thinks about things, and respecting the humor of the thing that I think was very big in the original trilogy that was lacking a little in the prequels that I felt came back in the new trilogy was the humor, right? That it can't all be all serious all the time. It's one of, as a DC fan,
Hmm.
I am I am heartbroken by this decision for so many of the movies to be, everything's Batman now. Even if it's a different, thing, everything's Batman. So like and I mean, I say this believing that Wonder Woman should have won awards. It was one of the most amazingly written and beautifully done movies. But like when Aquaman came out and had humor in it, and when Shazam came out and had humor, and if you look at the trailers from 1980 when Wonder Woman 1984, it clearly has more humor in it,
Mm.
and I believe that that's something that, like, it can't be all dark all the time.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
just the like the comedic exchanges with the droids I think are absolutely key. So I felt like there was more of that in the new ones than there was in so she's gonna see. I will let her watch Attack of the Clones from beginning to end. I'm gonna let her watch Revenge of the Sith. There's an order that my best friend found out about years ago, before the Big Bang Theory ever brought it up. Where what you basically do is, what do you watch? You watch the original Star Wars. Sorry, A New Hope, which I never heard it called A New Hope until like the 90s. So it's Star Wars. So you watch Star Wars and Empire, then you watch Attack of the Clones and um uh what you call it, and Revenge of the Sith as a flashback, and then you finish up with Return of the Jedi. So you just watch the five, and you skip. I mean, this is if you're gonna do them all in a row, right? Which we
Okay.
did. But so you skip Phantom Menace because I found that. So Jar Jar Binks to me is one of the worst parts. I know that a lot of people say that, and
But Darth Jar Jar.
yes, Darth Jar Jar. And I have seen the conspiracy theory that Jar Jar is actually a Sith
It's
and
actually
he's the
very
Phantom
convincing,
Menace.
you know.
It's very well written. It is very.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
deny, but I felt that he was so forced in the type of humor he was trying to do. I felt that I actually felt he was borderline racist in certain areas.
Oh yeah. 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 I
Like
get
if
what
you
you
think
mean.
about it, and it's just, and it like, and the way that they wrote that poor little kid, who we've taken to referring to as Little Orphan Annie, that like he was so whiny, and he was I just
But don't you
it was
think, in a way, though, that that's kind of done on purpose? Because I just want to challenge this a little. So, do you remember in original Star Wars, like how whiny Luke was in the beginning?
yeah, he
Just
was a little whiny in the beginning.
whinging.
He
He was like,
was,
"Oh,
yeah.
I gotta get some power converters," and
Yeah,
like Anakin is like exactly the same. I feel like that's done on purpose to make it be
I can
like, yeah,
see
this
that.
is definitely his dad.
And here's the thing. I'm going to say this, and I realize as someone who's hoping to get people to fund his Kickstarter, this is a very dangerous statement for me to make, but I'm going to make it anyway,
Go
because I
for it.
believe this, and again, because I'm old, and apparently old people like Gen Xers are supposed to be complaining about things because that's what we do, I guess now. So the original Star Wars trilogy has holes. It has
Yeah,
plot
yeah,
holes.
absolutely.
It has mistakes within the editing and stuff like that. And then when they went back and they redid it, the whole Han shot first movement. I mean, that's my like one of my good buddies has been just like championing that forever. I read the entire old EU all the books,
Mm.
and there was almost invariably a Han shot first joke in every single book that was written. So but it's like there are holes. There definitely are holes, and I don't apologize about that. I just try to enjoy it for what it is,
Mm.
and I felt like with the trilogy, with the first one, it felt too forced. A lot of the stuff that was going on was just too forced. It's like he was trying to pack too much stuff in there, and then I felt that it became less of a problem in 2 and 3, and it got to the point where in Revenge of the Sith, we've talked about the fact that, and again, I'm a little older than you, so when we saw it in the theater, I mean, I think what was I probably like 20, 21, 22 years old,
Mm.
and so we talked about when he goes and spoiler alert for anybody out there who hasn't seen Revenge of the Sith, but when he goes and he slaughters the Sand People, my best friend's sitting next to me and he goes, "Yes, I've been waiting for him to do something like that."
Mm.
Like it was so much of it was about him being sad, and he kept waiting for the conversion from sad to angry,
Yeah.
and so that was something that was very very interesting. And so I don't hate the prequels as much, and I enjoyed the. Here's another risky one. I enjoyed the 3 new movies. I really did. I thought were there a couple of cringy things? Look, there's no one who's going to be okay with the milk scene. They're just not. It's just not.
You know what? I think that just going back for 1 second, my only real complaint with, like, yeah, first two, they some stuff could have been done with that, right? But
Yep.
I feel like the bigger issue is like, because I feel that they really did a good job with the turn of Anakin, right? But
Yep.
I feel like that bit where it goes from, he's a conflicted Jedi to child murdering Sith Lord, I felt like that was too much of a leap, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like I felt like that, like, which I know that they've kind of done with Clone Wars and stuff like that. They've filled in the gaps, but I feel like
Yeah.
they should have just done another movie. Had it as, like, I know that's unprecedented, but like have
Oh, I
like,
know. You can't have a quartet. It's got to be a trilogy.
yeah, I know, but they should have done that because I feel
Yeah.
like I remember watching Attack of the Clones and thinking like, oh, I would have liked to have seen like more of the actual battles. I feel like
Yeah. Like
you just
Clone
skimmed
Wars gives
over
you that
it.
interesting slope as opposed to the flipped switch, and I agree with you. That was one of the things that our biggest issue with him. I get the angsty teenager thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Again, like when these things came out, I wasn't that far removed from my teenage years as it was. Um, so like I understood the whole angsty teenager thing. I just like I thought about other movies where you have that teenager who goes from angsty to sliding down the slope of doing some bad stuff and then some heinous stuff, right? And he makes that leap a little bit too quickly, and he
Mm,
doesn't like I kept waiting for him, like if you had seen him lash out at little things here and there, not the whiny lash out, but the lash out and the like, Anakin, you can't do that. And that's what I thought that I really really enjoyed Clone Wars. Anybody now, what's interesting is I saw the movie in the theater. I took somebody, I don't know if I took like my little cousin or something. I saw the movie in the theater and I was like, oh, I don't know about this. Like this is kind of, and then the show was so much better than the movie. So if you've seen the movie and you didn't watch the show, watch the show. It fills in a lot of gaps. I am not. I already know that Ahsoka Tano is coming into Mandalorian. We haven't gotten to that episode yet. My wife goes, "Who's Ahsoka?" I was like, "Just watch." I was like, "This is going to be really, really cool," and I'm apologizing ahead of time. I'm going to geek out because you didn't watch the Clone Wars, but yeah, like that was some of the stuff, like the leaps that were made are a bit frustrating to me,
mm,
and I do feel like in the new trilogy they connected things a little bit more smoothly.
Yeah.
I do wonder if because I thought the first and third movie were pretty well done, and I mean it's JJ, like I expect good things from JJ. The stuff in the middle was a little bit weird because, like, you know, my biggest issue, and we've talked to, my friends and I have talked about this, and this goes back to like something that happened to my character in the role playing game years ago. And it's like just the whole jumping to light speed through another ship is just like, if that were a thing, then you don't need the whole trench scene with the Death Star. You just jump to hyperspace through the Death Star, and it's a non-issue, and that stuff would happen all the time. So that seemed a bit odd. The slow speed chase seemed a bit odd. Like there were a lot of elements of that film that seemed out of place.
Mm.
Um, but again, I don't think it was a terrible movie. I did not love Carrie Fisher's Mary Poppins scene. Where she's out and then oh come on, she's in the blue dress, she strikes the pose, and she's flying, and
I
that
will
was
admit
just
that was weird.
that was odd. That
I
was
dug
very
it,
odd
but
to
at the
me.
same time, because that's like the first time we see her like ever use the Force, isn't it? So it's kind of
Exactly.
like
Um,
cool, but like really weird.
yeah, it was very, very strange. But then I read stuff, and I've been trying not to read too much stuff online because people are like, you can't just make up force powers. Dude, did you read the old EU? Because like they made up new force powers all the time, and
I
there's
think
like
just people
constantly
like to
stuff.
just complain all the time.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed.
Well, that's why I joked about my generation. Like a lot of Gen Xers just want to it's the lamentation of it's not mine anymore, and you're trying to do it for somebody else. And like the remakes and
Hmm.
stuff like that of all these different things that are coming out, I feel like a lot of it's driven by my generation. And I my buddy said something really, really interesting, after the last of the new trilogy came out. He said, he's like, look, you know what, I think that we need to come to terms with the fact that Star Wars isn't being made for us anymore. We're not the target demographic. They want to make us happy, but like it's really being aimed at today's teenagers and 20 and 30 somethings.
Hmm.
Like, hey guys, he's like we're basically like we're in our 40s now. um I just turned 43 like a week ago or something like
Oh,
that, so it's
congrats.
thank you. um and it's like it's not directly at me anymore, and I'm okay with that because I enjoy. There was something that I remember before JJ's first one came out. There were a lot of people who were complaining of, you better not diverge too much from the original movies. You got to make it a lot like the original movies. You better not move away from the original movies. And then it comes out and everybody's going, oh, you were just ripping off the original movies. I'm like, dude, you just spent 6 months complaining that it wasn't going to be like the original movies.
Yeah.
And then when it came out kind of like an homage to the original movies,
Yeah.
you got angry, and
It's the
it's
same
just,
movie. It's literally just Star Wars 2.0, like the
yeah. And
first
it's,
one.
you know what, here's the funny thing, I really like the original Star Wars movie. So
Yeah.
when people went, how could you like that, it's exactly like the first one, I was like, did you not like the first one? Like, well, I love the first one. It's like, how do you not like this one?
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree. Like, I think everyone says, "Oh, the sequels are bad." I think there are parts within it that can be argued and debated, but it's the same as a prequel, isn't it? It's like
yeah,
that first one. I mean, I don't know. Like, I remember afterwards thinking, "Yeah, I'm excited for this. This looks like it's going in the right direction." I felt like with Last Jedi, they kind of lost that momentum. But it was more because of things like, was it Snoke was killed in that one, wasn't he?
Snoke was the second one. Yep.
Yeah, I felt like that was a bigger mistake because everyone complains about, oh, this character arc and that character arc. And for me,
Yeah.
it's like I didn't understand the return to Palpatine. That was kind of cool, but it's like I kind of figured, based on what you were saying before, about if you're introducing this to a new generation and you want to have like Easter eggs for the old generation, but
Yep.
ultimately establish something new, why are we
Yeah.
not getting like more about Finn? And you know what I mean? It was like,
That's
hey,
what
he
yeah.
has the Force, but that's all, folks. And and
Yeah,
like
it was
stuff like that.
very, very, I found that unusual that, like I loved the fact that there was a lot of the cameos. Like the Lando cameo was
That's
cool,
cool.
and I was happy that he was in it to the degree he was, but they didn't force him down your throat, right?
Yeah.
I think that Carrie Fisher, there was enough, but not too much. I felt that Mark Hamill, and I mean, I'm a Mark Hamill nut.
Of
I
course.
actually posted some old interviews of his on Twitter recently because they're just cool, and, and he does a great Harrison Ford impression. And but I was happy to see him the amount that I saw him.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to be inundated with all the old folks, and like seeing 3 seconds of Wedge Antilles was awesome. We're like, hey, that's Wedge, and then we're back to doing something else, right? So like it's just it's the little things that I think are good, and I didn't, what, I wanted more of the Knights of Ren. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
that
a
to
really
me,
good question.
yeah,
Like,
like,
why did we not learn more about that? That was
yeah,
like, it was like, hey, he's part of this order, and that's it.
yeah, and it was Knights of Ren was really interesting to me. I'm
Mm.
kind of hoping now. I don't know if you read any of the Star Wars comics. I'm sort of hoping they'll do a Knights of Ren, if not a series, and at least a
They've
mini
got to,
series,
haven't they? Yeah.
or a cartoon show or something,
Mm.
because it lends itself. Now, what's interesting to me, though, very much so, is the fact that they're saying this is the end of the Skywalker, like, epic, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, supposedly, like Daisy Ridley and John Boyega have already said, like, we're good, we're done. Like, we're ready to move on to other things. Okay, fine, have at it. But I also remember when J.K. Rowling said, "Well, that's it. I'm done with Harry Potter. We're done with that." And my I remember my buddy going, "Yeah, till you can't get a brainstorm on something else and you need some more money, and then you'll go back and, oh, look, she went back." So I don't think this is the last that we're seeing of the stuff from that. I feel like Knights of Ren could be an interesting movie standalone by itself.
Yeah.
Um, and a great thing I had read, God, I can't even think of how many years ago now, was about the juxtaposition of the Star Wars series, because now with Disney it's a series, versus the Marvel series. And they talked about the fact that the standalone movies for Marvel, before you'd have your Avengers team ups, they always move the story forward. And the problem with what Star Wars was doing is you had Rogue One, a Star Wars tale, it's in the past. Solo, a Star Wars tale, it's in the past. And I don't remember if Obi-Wan's going to be a movie or a series, or not.
I think
I
it's a
know it's going to be Yoda. It's
series.
going to be a series. Okay, so but again, it's like it's more in the past, and I'm fine with doing that. But it's like if you if you did your Force Awakens,
Hmm.
and then in between you did something like, hey, we're going to do a movie on the Knights of Ren,
Yeah.
and maybe we're going to do a movie on Phasma, right? And something interesting around like the Stormtrooper Academy and all that stuff. And then you go and you have your second movie, and then you do something else in between, like seeing Rey trying to do her training,
Yeah.
or like you could have done. I know this is. I don't understand why she's a hated character, but I know she's a hated character. You could have done something with Rose Tico. You could have done something with Poe
Yeah.
Dameron.
Again, I don't get
I
that.
don't know. I
Like,
don't
this is
understand.
where I because I think that you make, with your criticisms of the sequels, it's like fair and balanced and
Yep.
logical. Whereas most hatred that I see online, like, I don't agree with either. It's like
Yeah.
just targeting people like, oh, this character sucks so
Yeah.
much. Like, I don't get that. Like,
The only character who has ever sucked so much is Jar Jar Binks. Like every
yeah.
other character has interesting aspects. I mean, listen, I will say that for whatever reason, I've never been a Laura Dern fan. I'm just not a fan of the actress in a lot of things that she's been in. I anticipate your hate letters. I'm sorry, um, but I didn't have too much of an issue with the character. I thought the character was interesting, and so I don't, there are moments of every character where it's like the Mary Poppins moment for Leia.
I'm never going
There
to be able
are
to imagine that as anything
yeah.
else, though.
Well, that's how I just can't see it any other way. But again, like you even said, Luke being kind of whiny in the beginning of the first movie, and like there are moments for characters, but there are no characters I truly hate.
Yeah.
Ben Solo was whiny as all hell for a while, you
Yeah.
know, and it's just
It's just a family of whiny people.
yeah, clearly.
Just
You
whiny,
know,
whingy people.
and the other thing is like the Mary Sue comment that I hear all the time, where I just first of all I never fully understand the whole concept of Mary Sue. I don't know exactly where the insult comes from and all that stuff, but you know, just this idea that Rey can do too many things, she's too perfect, all that stuff.
Hmm.
We as a society, and I'm basically saying, you know, like Earth, we're all Superman fans. Who's a bigger Mary Sue, you know, by that definition,
Okay.
than Superman, you
I'm going to
know? And
challenge
like,
that, though.
okay,
At least with Superman, you've got like a backstory, a fully designed backstory, and it's like, yeah, he's got this unlimited power, but you know, it's a tale of a man, you know, trying to be a good human being, really,
hmm
you know, at its core, and then also obviously, you know, adjusting to his legacy, well, not legacy, like
okay.
heritage, right?
So I will challenge you right back. How is Rey not the story of someone just trying to figure out who she is? Her parents abandoned her. She doesn't know why. She doesn't know who she is. And yes, there are a lot of happenstance for how these people wind up where they wind up. But that happened to Luke.
The issue I think most people seem to have, right? Because I agree, right?
Yeah.
But okay, if you take Luke as an example, right?
Yep.
Luke, as we know, wasn't a fully fledged Jedi by the time he was battling Darth Vader. Like Obi-Wan confirmed that, Yoda confirmed that. He
True.
was, you know, strong, very strong with the Force, but not ready, right?
Yep.
And it was just a message of, well, you know, you just have to go for it in life, even if you're not ready, right?
Yep.
Anakin was a fully fledged Jedi Master, very powerful. He's the chosen one. There's that,
Sure.
right? With Rey, obviously, as we now know, it's because of Palpatine, right?
Sure.
I guess it flows through the veins, something like that, you know.
Yeah.
But the trouble with that is like she goes from has no idea, absolutely no idea whatsoever, to she's a fully fledged, like, you know, the most powerful Jedi of all time. That's what they're trying to say. And I think
Sure.
that's more what kind of annoys people is like, you know.
And that's why you need that standalone Rey movie in the middle to advance the story.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what it is. That's where that's why I think that they dropped the ball. That I do not think these were bad movies. Okay?
No, me neither.
And something that I think a lot of people will realize is that there will be generational arguments because everybody's going to see different movies through the lens of their childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and I think that you know, and again, it's as my buddy says, it's not made directly for people of my generation anymore. Those in their 40s and 50s, you know, it's kind of going, you know, and I do not buy into the whole concept of you're not a real fan if no. If you like something, you're a fan. Like there's not, you know, you don't, you know, as I used to tell my brother, it was like, okay, I get you're rooting for this team. It doesn't matter that you can't, you know, you can't name anybody on the roster. That's your team, fine. You know, it's just this mentality of everyone's got the lens of what's beloved to them, and they overlook. I mean, that goes with people, right? You know, I mean, I'm certain that my wife overlooks certain aspects of my personality that other women who I dated had no interest in overlooking because she truly loves me.
Yes.
You know, and the same goes for really anything. And you can debate. I mean, that's the beautiful part, I think, of science fiction. You know, you can debate and you can borrow from and you can see, look, I mean, I'm a big Dune fan. Anybody who's read Antares Ascended has probably quickly figured out, oh yeah, this guy likes Dune. And, you know, there are people on the Dune boards that I like who complain all the time about how badly George Lucas ripped off Dune for Star Wars. And there's all of that. There's always going to be the arguments. There's always going to be the debates.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of when you get to the anger levels, when you get like the fact that Kelly Marie Tran dropped off of social media because of death threats and like anger to this. It's like it's there has to be like you have to let it go to some point, and you have to be willing to say, okay, I didn't like that.
I've
And
never
I'm not
understood
going to
that as
watch it again.
well about humans, how whenever you don't like a character, you think it's real, and do you know, and like you attack the actor. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of stupidity is that? It's not real, it's fiction. And like, more to the point, that person has not decided to do that. They're just given a script and told to play
Yeah.
the character.
I mean,
So it's not their fault.
if you look at some of the old interviews and articles and stuff like that, and maybe this is a mind blower for some of your fans who are watching here, but Alec Guinness
Yeah.
hated Star Wars. Hated. He thought it was stupid. He thought the script was ridiculous. He thought the dialogue was ridiculous. He thought his costume was ridiculous. The stupid concept of the laser sword, and all that. Like, he hated it. He thought it was the stupidest thing ever. But it was a paycheck. And this is like one of the most decorated actors ever. Most people only know him from Star Wars, and he was a really big deal. But it's just that, right? It's we start to forget. Liam Neeson had made a comment that he would never be caught dead in going to a Star Wars convention or something to that effect, and that like he was not a Star Wars fan. He doesn't want to interact with fans. Meanwhile, Ewan McGregor, when he saw that they did the re-release of Jedi, where Anakin was now the Force ghost at the end of Jedi, was replaced with Hayden Christensen, and Ewan McGregor started, "Don't edit me out. I love Star Wars. I want to be Obi-Wan forever. Don't edit me out." And it's like, it's remarkable that people don't realize, like, there is, like, you've got to divorce the actors from the characters, and you have to remember that this is just somebody. That's why fan fiction exists. If you didn't like that, go write your own alternate ending. Go do your own interesting thing, and enjoy it, and like have fun with it instead of being angry about it. Because I mean, we tell my daughter all the time, if she's playing a game on her iPad, or she's watching a show that's not, it's like, dude, if it's upsetting you, then stop. Like, it's entertainment. It's supposed to make you happy. If it's not making you happy, go do something else. Go watch something else. Go read something else. And that's something where now I've been very, very lucky, right? I've got a couple of like real hardcore fans of Antares Ascended I've got one guy who has been tweeting and retweeting my Kickstarter more often than I have. I mean, I'm really lucky. He even went so far as so he's an aspiring writer as well. I let him write a little special 3-part series in the universe that I sent out to all, to all the readers. And one of the Kickstarter rewards is an ebook, and he asked me, it's like, can that be included in it? Because I was like, yeah, I will include it. I will give you the writing credit. I was like, I'll even let you write your own like forward to it before it comes in if you want. Like, I'll put it at the end of the book, and because it's going to be a collection of probably 2 years worth of material. And because like the series is on Patreon right now, but I'm going to do a collection of 2 years worth of material. And I was like, absolutely, like, this is cool that I've got people who read it who will, I like, look, there are negative parts of it. I'm a human being who wrote this, and I'm writing it based on ideas that I had, and a lot of it comes out of, hey, I'm a Star Wars fan, I'm a BattleTech fan, I'm a Dune fan, and all these other things that I've read. There are elements that come in where it's like, oh, I didn't like how they did that here, so I'm kind of writing it differently. You know what? Somebody's going to read that, and they're going to go, oh, well, in this thing, they did that instead, and that was so much better, where I thought, oh, I didn't like that particular thing, and that's why I'm doing it differently. And it's fine. Like, it's okay to have these differing opinions as long as you don't go ballistic on people. It's like, it's just art. It's art, and art is subjective.
Yes.
And it's supposed to be enjoyable.
Yes. I couldn't agree more.
I'm on the right podcast. All right.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah. No, I feel that way about many things. I mean, I'm into all sorts, music, arts, science fiction, you name it. Like sometimes when I get comments, like hate comments on my music, I'll look at like what the person is saying, and a lot of the time it will be like a comment that's not even worth kind of
Yeah,
really taken seriously, purely because it's like, well, this is subjective, you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like, it's one thing if something is poorly done
Yep.
versus if it's just not to your liking, you know what I mean? Like if it's not to your liking, that doesn't mean that it's bad. I mean, that's the thing, there's a lot of people that love The Last Jedi and think it's an excellent movie, and I don't think that they're wrong.
Yeah.
I had kind of have like mixed feelings about the sequels. You know what I mean? Like I watched them, I enjoyed them, and I
Yeah.
kind of, on a basic level, I kind of look at it like, if you enjoy something, then it was good. On a
Yep.
very basic level, do you know what I mean? But then you can pick
Yeah.
apart things in detail if you want, and like you said, you can make your own reimaginings and stuff. So
Yeah. I look, I mean, so I remember walking into the first one, and I mean, again, going back to Greatest Wife Ever, right? She got everything that came out. The only one we didn't see in the theaters was Solo, um, which I finally saw on Netflix last year and did not care for.
oh
Um,
really?
and I don't know why. I'm not really sure why I didn't like it.
I
And I
loved it.
probably have to give it another watch. It just didn't sit right with me. But so my wife got us tickets to all three of the sequel trilogy and Rogue One. And I remember her asking me like, "What are you thinking going into this?" And every single time, like, I'm not. I just hope it's a well done movie. Like, I hope it's fun. Um, and going into it with that mentality, again, are there things in every single aspect of it that I don't particularly enjoy? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then there's stuff that I've talked about where it's like I didn't like it at first, and I'm like, oh, you know what, that's kind of cool. Like you look at the fact that people talk about the like Ben Solo in that first one walking through the woods, and it's like they make it a point to show you how powerful Chewie's bowcaster is. And this dude took shots and shook them off, and he's just like hitting himself in the side just to try and keep himself going, and still like powerful like that. And I think that then plays into like the natural power of, oh, how was Ray able to stand up and handle this? Oh well, this dude did just get shot by this Wookiee bowcaster, so it's like amazing on both sides. Like, okay, cool, you know what, I can dig that, like I can get behind it. um and but there are other things where it's like, I didn't love this part, but I liked it and I had fun and I enjoyed the movies. And you know I went into it with that mentality of, I don't want to have a set of expectations, because
Mm.
I went in when Phantom Menace came out. The idea of for Star Wars in my like to be in the theaters, not so much in my lifetime, because what was Jedi, I think was 1981, right? So I mean, I was alive, I was 4. My parents were not taking me to see that, but to be able to see it in the theaters was, and I was so overblown with excitement that I was let down. And I do think that, as I'm going to go through, and hey, Disney Plus, we're watching everything else 100 times during quarantine. So, maybe we go and we do the marathon, and maybe we watch the prequels finally with her, and maybe I won't have as much of an issue with episode 1. That'll be a tough one to change for me, but 2 and 3 have grown on me over the years. And I'm to the point where I kind of like Attack of the Clones. I like Revenge of the Sith, because I've watched it so many times that there are elements of it that I like. And watching it with her today, and explaining all the stuff, and just realizing like, yeah, you know what, this isn't that bad. Like, I don't have an issue with it so much anymore. And it's just, I think that expectations can make a difference. I mean, listen, we saw the Rolling Stones. What was
Wow.
it, 2 years ago? So when did Mick had his heart attack? And they're back out on the road like 6 months later, and someone forgot to tell Mick he had a heart attack. And I had seen them. It was funny because we saw them in the new Giant Stadium. My wife had never seen them, and I had seen them probably about 10 years prior in the old Giant Stadium. And I went in thinking, okay, Mick Jagger just had a heart attack. These guys are, probably worn down, and let's see how this goes. I'm not gonna have any expectations. I'm just gonna be happy that they play the songs that I like. And I came out of there going, oh my god, they were better than when I saw them 10 years ago.
Wow.
And it was just, that's just been a thing for me over the years that maybe it came with age. But I've sort of gone in and I try not to have high expectations going into anything, because
Mm,
if you set the bar too high, then it's impossible for other people to meet what's in your head.
yes.
Like, you ever have somebody get mad at you because you did something in a dream that they had and you didn't even know it?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's like it's one of those things. It's like I can't control what your expectations are of me. Um, so I try to control what my expectations are so that I go in and it's not so bad, and then I find enjoying myself. And again, back to, it's entertainment. Enjoy yourself. Yeah, why not? So I don't know. Maybe I'm oversimplifying life, but
No,
better
I
than
think
overcomplicating.
I think you got it down, man. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Right. Shall we talk about you now?
We can we can do that. I'm okay with
Because
that.
I was not expecting to talk about Star Wars for nearly an hour. I love that. I could talk about it all day,
Oh yeah,
but we do need to talk about you.
I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
Right. Now, a few times there you mentioned your Kickstarter,
Yes, sir.
and this Kickstarter is to fund a mobile game based on alien gladiators, and I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, from the Antares Ascended universe. Is that right?
Yep, I'm okay with Antares. Somebody asked me the other day, is it Antares or Antares? I was like, I say Antares. You can say
Antares.
Antares. I don't care. So
Okay.
yes, it's based on Antares Ascended. And the idea is, so I'm going to give a spoiler alert for anybody who decides to join the Patreon and wants to read the series, or who gets the ebook as part of the backing. So this race, they're called Homins, Homyn. Some of the backstory that you'll see in there as you read it is that the mythic travelers had arrived in there, and there was this whole there's a thing that I call Carva, Karva, and it's based on like a shared psychic mind space, right? And and so in the middle of their palms, they have these purple things called volets. And when they press those together, and there's at least three of them together, they launch into the shared mind space. So what the idea is that back before there were homins, volets were their own thing, and they ended up, for mutual survival, they merged with whatever the travelers were. They're humans. Just don't tell anyone, but they're humans.
It reminds me of
Um,
the Ood from Doctor Who for some reason.
So I'm going to
When
say
they,
this again, very risky. I haven't actually watched Doctor Who.
wow,
That's a thing that my buddies have been on me for a while, and
gotta
it's
watch it, man.
there's oh no, I know, and everybody's got their own doctor that they're very very partial to.
Yeah,
There's so much content and so little time that a bunch of my friends don't have kids, so it makes it easier
yeah.
for them to watch what they need. Um, but yeah, so this idea that um, homins by nature are aggressive, and so there's this thing that gets referred to a number of times of the War of Lords, and there are all these houses. There's major and minor houses that all came out of the War of Lords, and there's this prophecy that's really driving the first couple of years of the series. That comes out of that, and so part of the decision was that um, the Archon, was it the initial? I can't remember if I made it the first or the second Archon, who from House Antares, who runs the Empire, created this arena fighting thing. It had been called Turian Games for a while. I sort of decided to retire that name. I suspended the Turian Games during the war that's been happening now, and spoiler alert: something that's going to be happening in the coming months is that the one of the princes, who is a gladiator himself, is restarting it, and it's going under the name Antares Arena, so it's sort of tying it into, and so it's basically the official sport of the Antares Empire, because you've got these violent people, and how do you take them and give them an outlet so that society can be peaceful? And so this is this official sport, and the idea is that, like, they have um, They wear what are called warden suits, and a warden suit protects you completely, but it's wired on the inside. So you get hit, it's not going to break your arm, but your arm is going to feel as if it were broken. So you're getting the pain sensations, and it's slowing you down. And so the battle will end once you've basically been, bludgeoned to the point where you would in theory be dead. But then they release you from your warden suit hold, you get up and you walk away, right? And the main weapon is the pulse baton, which basically looks like almost like a baseball bat, right? And all of this stuff, crazy enough, harkens back to something I came up with in college, and just kind of pulled it off the shelf and refabricated it in the last few years. And so that's the mentality for this game. And I used to do like tournaments, and I would just list the results and the play-by-play and put those out there as part of the stuff for the Patreon. And I was like, oh, this would make just a cool game.
A couple of questions here.
Sure, hit me.
What is the name of the game?
So the game is Antares Arena.
Antares Arena. Okay.
Yep.
And then, I mean, I think you've laid it out there, but I just want to confirm this.
Sure.
So the books are, the science fiction books are all part of that Antares Ascended universe that you read?
Yeah, so there's a monthly... Yeah, so what it is that on Patreon, if anybody's familiar with Patreon, there are monthly issues, right? And somewhere towards the end of the first year, I actually separated out because House Antares is, they run they run the empire, and then kind of the ancient enemy was House Verichoa. And so a lot of this is based around, I'm not really giving much up because it happens in the first issue, and the first issue is free. So the nephew of the Archon, who his mother is of House Verichoa, and the grandfather tried to broker peace by having them marry in. And there is this prophecy that says that House Verichoa will rise again. So even though he's actually in Antares, he embraces House Verichoa, and he assassinates his own father, brother of the Archon, his aunt, wife of the Archon, and his brother, who he referred to as an Antares lapdog, where his brother would shoot back and say, "But we are Antares." And so it's kind of that's a lot of the underlying. So there are two different storylines going right now of Antares and Verichoa on a monthly basis in Patreon, and then this game is basically growing out of the science fiction series. And so hopefully, if this goes well, I will come up with other games coming out of the universe.
Okay, yeah, I figured that was the case. I just wanted to fully understand that, because to me it
sure.
would seem like the books are like, I guess, like the main sort of attraction, so to speak, and then the game. Not that the game isn't, but the game is like one aspect of this wider universe kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah.
Moving it forward, what's your target for the Kickstarter, and like how far are you off from achieving your goal for it?
Pretty far off right now.
Okay.
And I realized I sort of I launched it during during holiday time, and B, I know that most Kickstarters tend to get really the bulk of their funding in the last week of the program, right? So so what I basically have a company who I connected with that I learned that a friend of mine had started a few years back. And so she gave me a quote, and I basically took that, figured out what Kickstarter's fees get subtracted by. So I had to go up a little bit. And right now I think the number is 78,000 USD that I need to hit. I just crossed over the 2K mark the other day. So I'm hopeful that we see some folks actually come in and go, oh yeah, you know what? I want to back this. I want to make this happen. Like, the game looks like it's going to be fun and stuff like that.
I got to say, like, it sounds like a lot, but it's like, I've seen a lot of Kickstarters over the years, and it is just simply about getting the numbers, really. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, like, if everyone chips in like $2, $3, whatever, then you get it like quicker than you realize.
Oh, yeah.
And this I feel like this is a fantastic idea. Like it sounds very original. I can sort of see that there are certain things that it reminds me of, but that's good because I think everything is anything nothing is truly original. Everything is based on something. That's just how
Yeah.
art
No, I
works.
know that.
Yeah, I know you know that, but I don't think everyone else in the world seems to understand that. There seems
Yeah,
to always
like
be people that
truly unique ideas are hard to come by.
yeah, there's always
You
someone
know.
to be like, that's a rip off of this thing. And
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
they're right, but a lot of times they're wrong because everything is
yeah.
based on everything. But yeah, with this Kickstarter and this game and Atari's Ascended and
You can call it Antares. That's cool, man. It's okay. It sounds
Antares
better with your accent than with
Arena.
mine. You know, I'm from New York. You're from London. Who's got the cooler accent? Let's be realistic here.
I don't know. I think they're both quite charming in some ways,
That's fair.
But no, with this game and this series, you can tell a lot of work has gone into this, and moving it forward to your Patreon, I noticed this even more when I looked at the different levels and stuff. Like you've got like this kind of tier system going on, where there's like a smaller monthly fee for one level, and then a slightly higher fee for like more exclusive content, more premium, etc.
Yeah.
So with this Patreon, what else do people get? Like, what can people expect when they sign up for this Patreon?
Sure. So, I mean, that's the way. Number one, that's how you're going to get the ongoing storylines, right? But then, I did a little bit of a divergent. Was it last month? It was either October or November. I had been getting, some requests to kind of focus on a single character for a little bit, right? Because
Interesting.
because everything, yeah, like almost harkens back to what I was talking about with the movies in between, right? Because everything really focuses a lot on, you know. So on the one side, you've got Ogun Antares. He's the Archon. If you've seen the image in my Twitter, he's the guy sitting in the throne, kind of like this, right? Um, and then on the Virachoa side, it kind of focuses a lot on Tupan Virachoa and his mother Ocala, right? And then there are other characters that sort of go around, and there was a bit that focused a little more on Portis, who is the heir to the throne. So I had gotten a little bit of people say, can you do more on Portis? Can you do something on Portis? So I actually did a 3-part miniseries. Like I kind of diverged from the normal storylines for a bit, and I did a 3-part miniseries on Portis, which is not something that like you're not gonna get that stuff. It's not like I'm gonna throw that stuff out there as for anything. I've done some like little one-off short stories and things in the universe that that I'll throw out there for free. But yeah, that's something that's part of it. I think that I'm gonna do. There's an interesting storyline about. I'm cutting a little bit of ahead for folks who haven't read it, but you've got so there are 3 children, and the oldest one is Tirza, and she was the original heir to the throne, and she had decided to go down the road of the priesthood, and part of the priesthood is they actually are required in one of their rites that they drink this kind of potion that sterilizes them. And she decided that she wanted to, number one, go down the road of the priesthood. That's really sure what she wanted. She didn't want to be part of the royal hierarchy. And the way that she was able to get her father off her back is using a very non-feminist technique, but that she knew would very much irritate him. She said, I can't give you an heir if there can't be an heir for me. So if I take the throne, then there will be chaos and there will be war again after I die. Is that what you want? And so she knows that's not how her father thinks. She knows that's not how she thinks, but she basically put it that way because she knows that if she says it in front of the council will argue him down. And so it's sort of like she's very intelligent and she's very powerful, and she's empathic, but she also is abhorrent of war, and so she very recently took over the planet. She kicked off the military. She required an end to all arena fighting, and she has basically made her planet one of peace and one of religion only, and it's all about the gods here. And so I'm probably going to do another trilogy digging deeper into her. I, for a while, had been doing some stories of the gods, right? And I may get back into doing some of those again as well, because I like to throw fun things out there. I want to give, look, we're all stuck in the house, and it's going to get colder again, and we may be all stuck in the house a lot more coming soon. So I want to give people stuff to read. I want to give people content. Stuff to do, and I think it's important to be able to put more out there, and especially for the people who are going to be contributing to me and supporting me. I want to give them more than they were bargaining for. I think that's just fair.
What are the main goals and aspirations you have for your game and your books in general?
My main aspiration. I want people to read the books. I want them to enjoy the storylines. I want them to talk about it. I want them to invite their friends to do it. I don't have any delusions of being an icon. Timothy Zahn, Michael A. Stackpole, those are people who I revere. There's so many more, right? And and I don't expect to be George.
We all want to be George.
What's that?
We all want to be George.
Yeah,
we can't
it's like
all be George.
I don't have any thoughts of that. I don't have any thoughts of being Jeff Bezos or anything like that either. I would love the game I would love the Kickstarter to be successful. I would love the game to be played by a loyal group of people. If I don't have millions of people playing it around the world, but there's like 50 to 100,000 who are like, yeah, I love playing this game, and hell, if it makes just enough money to pay for my daughter to go to college, I happen to love my job, so I'm not in any hurry to go leave that. But
what do you do for work?
So I'm a solutions architect focusing on selling support services for a very major SaaS company. There, I think that I'm not wearing anything around. Yeah, I don't want anybody to think that they endorse me or anything like that. But yeah, I'm in.
For those who don't know, that means software as a service.
Oh, sorry. Yes, software as a service. Yeah. Yep. And I started my career as a programmer. That's why the prototype for the game, is a non-mobile optimized web game that I've spent time over the quarantine teaching myself PHP and teaching myself MySQL, because I started off as an ASP and SQL Server guy many years ago, potentially while some of your viewers were still in elementary school, and because I'm old. And now I've moved into services and sales, and so yes, I actually love my job, but this is my passion, and so writing and it's like if I were to go into retirement one day, where what I'm focused on is I'm still writing, I'm writing on Terry's Ascended, and I revisit my Olympus Union stuff, and I have 2 or 3 games that I've helped to foster, and that's just what I do. My one of my grandfathers he was a professor until I think he was probably 83 or 84 when he finally had to call it quits. And I look at that. He said, I was like, "Why are you still working?" He goes, "Because I'm having fun." And so that's, to me, it's like, if I were writing and I were working on games into my 80s, that's cool. I'm good with that. So it's fun, and that's really my aspiration for this.
That's awesome, man. That's exactly the same aspiration I have. Just to enjoy what I do for a living and love it. That should be everyone's goal, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about the game, though, because I want to explore this. So again, for those listening and watching, the game is called Antares Arena, and I guess I just wanted to I understand, you're still pushing that the game is still in development, and it's obviously dependent on the Kickstarter and everything. But let's assume all things go well. First of all, is the game, will it be like a freemium model, or what kind of model? Okay.
Yep. So here, let me give you kind of the lay of the land, right? The idea is you come in and you'll have a gladiator template that you can choose off of your initial 4 gladiators. Um, you have different skills, and they are they are all based off of traditional paper and dice role playing, because that's stuff that I've written before. And so when I coded a lot of the sequences, even though it's like you might have a strength of 3.2, in my mind that's 3 dice plus 2. You know, and so that's sort of how I've coded the mentality in the background.
Right.
You go in and you can buy weapons, you can buy armor, you challenge, you go into the arenas, and you will fight. Um, You'll have winnings. Even if you lose, you're still going to get some money. The currency is called kovals, and then you train yourself up, and then you kind of lather, rinse, repeat, right? Going beyond that, the idea is that, and all of that's free to play, right? I am going to be putting in something that a lot of games have, like you have only so many uh, uh, times to challenge
Mm.
while you power your stamina back up and stuff like that. So that'll be time based. And I'm going to be introducing concept of gems, and gems will allow you to, if you want to go fight again before you're completely powered back up, if you want to buy more advanced weaponry, things of that nature, gems will be something that you can either buy or watch a video to earn. And there will be videos to earn stuff. You will be able to buy more gems and use them to buy more of the currency, like the kovals and stuff like that. I'm trying to keep it simple, right? Like I don't want it to be a billion different things that people would spend money on, because I want it to be more about the fun and the gameplay.
Yeah.
And then the eventual idea is that you're going to be able to buy additional gladiators, so that you can have just kind of a cast of characters that you're playing, which, you can level up your different gladiators. I'm going to set it up so that you can buy weapons and then stick them in a storage locker, and then go buy another weapon for yourself. Instead of selling back your old weapon, you throw it in the storage locker, and one of your lesser gladiators can now use that, so you don't have to go buy it again. And eventually I'm going to be introducing, instead of having just 1-on-1, you'll have 3-on-3 kind of battles and stuff like that. And ever evolving, right? I mean, there are games that I play that there's a little bit of inspiration that's come from. If anybody's played Dragon City, if anybody's played Archero, those are games that I sort of had looked at and said, you know what, I like these aspects of the game, and so I'm going to try and incorporate them in. We're incorporating in fighter prestige. Different levels of arenas are going to have different levels of fighters. So are you fighting somebody who's on your level, who's below you, who's stronger than you? It's going to affect your prestige. It's going to, like, their prestige levels will be different. It's going to affect your rewards. There's going to be an audience happiness factor. So like if the
That's
oh
cool.
yeah, and that's, there's like, I want to do a sliding scale where it's like, look, you know what, the reality is that if it's a squash match, then no one wants to see that. I mean, I
Are you by
remember
chance a wrestling fan as well?
I
Maybe.
haven't watched in a few years,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, my friends and I in college, so I went to the University of Albany, and wow, I'm like making it. If I use any of that stuff for my passwords, it would be so easy to hack me at this point. So yeah, so I went to University of Albany, and my friends and I, we would go to a Raw or SmackDown
Yeah,
taping
yeah, yeah.
every single year. We went to, there was a pay-per-view that came, so we went to that, and yeah,
Cool.
so in the late 90s and the early 2000s, I was pretty much so that's the thing. It's like, I think about Bill Goldberg back in the day, WCW, and his matches were so often squash matches, and I'm like, all right, that was kind of cool, I guess. Yeah, go Bill. But
I,
like not as impressive as the long matches,
I
Like
think
I
it
want a
really
Mick Foley
depends,
match.
doesn't it? Like if, yeah, like I could, by the way, I'm a massive wrestling fan. I could talk all day about this, but we'll bring it back to the game.
Sure.
Um, I get what you're saying. I think there's a big difference between, obviously, if you're watching something, outside, outside in an arena,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
watching it on an arena and stuff, and you're watching it live, you kind of maybe feel cheated. Whereas if you're watching it, on TV, maybe it's a bit different. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
I suppose you can make an argument for both, really. It,
Yeah.
it depends. But in the context of a game, I've seen this in certain games. I've seen this in WWE games. I've seen them do that.
Yep.
I think I've seen it in something else. I can't remember. But yeah, it makes sense. And I suppose it depends how you want to play a game. Do you want to get it through it quickly, or do you want to kind of like have fun? Do you know what I mean? Like, for instance, you said there's like different types of fighters. So I imagine there'll be like fighters that are more like, assassins, ones that are more like brute force.
You've got speedy people. You've got the savage, I'm going to swing at your head every single time. And, I've actually put in stuff where it's like, if you just sit there and you're going headshot, 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 hey, you're swinging out like this, you're up. And I've made it so that the computer's going to recognize, oh, you're doing multiple head swings in a row. I'm going to hit you in the body now because you're leaving yourself wide open, and now you're going to get hit even harder. And you're taking a risk. And when I've got different stuff like that, like if you get hit in the head but it's not hard enough to do damage, you're going to be dizzy. You get hit in the arm and it's not enough to do damage, your arm's going to be numb, which means it's going to be harder to land the strike, right? And I try to make it so that it has to be. I like the casual aspect of it, so there has to be casual aspect to it. But there also has to be some, like, it's not, you're not just going tap 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 next, tap 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 next. Like there's got to be something to it where you've got to think. There's got to be some strategy to it.
It's tricky, isn't it? Knowing which type of game to do, because classic beat 'em ups, they do well, but but this is the thing. Like, fans these days are so picky. Some people say, "Oh, I hate classic beat 'em ups. I want something that's more, there's more strategy to it and it's more complex." And other people will say, like, "Oh, there's not enough fighting. It's too strategic." Like, whatever. I don't know.
That's why the top end of my aspiration is like, a couple of 100,000 people playing it. I'm good. I don't need millions. I want to have people who are actually going to enjoy it and who are going to give feedback of, hey, I like this part, and but I would love to see something like that. I did going through with this web version of the game as I was kind of building out the prototype. I had a bunch of alpha testers, and who I would ask, and I would survey, do you like this part? Do you, as I built the functionality along, is this stuff that's cool to you? Do you want this? Do you care about this? Should I dig? And I got really interesting feedback. So that's the beauty of the internet. And I think a lot of folks forget that. It's, if you don't like the way this is, it can be changed. It's just code. It's not stone. It's not books. There was a challenge I remember a number of years ago. So my buddy's one of the Wikipedia editors, and I remember him telling me that, like, they actually went.
It's an actual job. I thought it was just people messing around.
No. That's it's like, it's hobbyist, but like you have to. They're pretty forceful on making sure that you're above board, and like
so it's like a volunteer style thing.
Yeah, it's a volunteer thing, but they police the articles and they make sure that you're not, like people aren't messing with stuff on purpose. But I remember he told me a few years back that they did like this comparison between, maybe it was Encyclopedia Britannica and Wikipedia, to see who's more accurate. And so they found out, like, and Wikipedia was, what was it? He said there was something only like 3% inaccuracy or something that and it was about the same for Encyclopedia Britannica print version. And so Wikipedia turned around and like a week later said, okay, we fixed all of the issues. Can you check us again? And it's like, we can fix this. We can change this. If this is wrong, we can change this.
That kind of blows my mind. Because I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone about this, so I've got loads of questions right now. Like, for example,
I'm not an editor, so I don't know all the answers.
I understand. But like, through your friend, how are they able to so quickly like edit? Like if someone like passes away, someone fairly notable, like I seriously like there's memes made about this. The fact that it's changed within the hour, if that. Like and they change like so if it's a long article, and I don't know who's just passed away recently.
Chadwick Boseman.
Okay, Chadwick Boseman. Right. So they'll change like every single instance of like he is to he
He
was,
was. Yep.
like throughout the entire article, and those are
Yeah.
long articles in many
I think
instances.
that they have people who are assigned to different areas, and I
Right.
mean, I've written a couple Wikipedia articles in the past. I mean, it's been years, but I've
Oh
written some
wow.
Wikipedia articles probably 10, 11 years ago,
Okay.
and the interface is pretty straightforward. And I don't think it's that difficult to do. It's more about making sure that you're being factual,
Right.
and so yeah, so it's. I mean, it's people don't realize how impressive that is, but that's the big thing, right? It's the internet, and that it's double edged, right? There is that danger because you can change anything, right? But when it comes to this perspective of a website or a game, I mean, if there's functionality that you're finding that is just no good, and there's a cogent reason behind why it should be changed, it can be changed. I mean, as I was developing stuff, there were certain things where I said, oh, yeah, I really don't want to change that because that's core to it. Okay, that's going to take me a long time to rebuild. And so I went and I rebuilt it. And, and then other stuff where it's, hey, could I just have this? I could probably make that happen. Yeah. And just
I
adding
have that
functionality.
within my powers. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was, I can't remember what the issue was. I remember being asked about something like, how come you can't do this? I was like, I don't know, man, physics.
What's it like being a Wikipedia god? The power you wield.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I was a Wikipedia god. No, just a low level nerd.
I mean,
I'm
I
just
will
I'm
say
just a
one
scruffy
thing.
looking nerve herder. What's that?
Oh, I love that I get that straight away, but there'll be people watching like, what does he mean by that? And it's like, you just got to be a nerd. But anyway, no, yeah, no, Wikipedia, I will say this, it's changed a lot over the years, because I remember messing around when I was, in my late high school years on Wikipedia entries, and you could get away with quite a lot, and it would take like upwards of an hour or two before it would be fixed.
Yeah.
But now it's like, as you said, like really strict, and it's almost near impossible to edit articles if you're not like, I suppose, one of the official agreed
Yeah. I mean,
editors.
I think that they take their and I don't know if I want to say the word responsibility, but I can't think of a better word for it because I think they realize how much of the world relies on them,
Yeah.
and they take that as a serious responsibility to look, you know what, we need to, as much as we can, ensure there's not going to be misinformation because people are coming to us for it, and they've become a true and trusted and respected resource. So
See, this is where you say this though, because I remember when I was at uni not long ago, university,
not
and
allowed to quote Wikipedia in your bibliography.
right, and the thing is, there's different ways you can look at this, because one thing I did use Wikipedia for was actually the sources, because if you
Yeah.
go drop to the bottom of an article,
Yep.
you can't, source Wikipedia. You can use the articles at the bottom
Sure.
and
Yeah.
to the original sources.
Yep.
So if you find a page that's got lots and lots of sources, chances are the information you're reading is much more reputable because it
Yeah.
comes from official sources.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And I think
Right.
that's why they do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, there is still this massive stigma, and in despite of all the efforts of the Wikipedia editors and everyone trying to make the website better and more reliable, I don't know that you can really get rid of that Wikipedia stigma of, like, you can't really trust this, and
So
you know what I mean?
yet, I think the word "yet" is important there
Okay.
because, and this can tie into every single element of what we've talked about today, right? So you were born what, like 92?
93.
93.
Think about
Okay,
that
I
now.
believe that's right around the same time that my cousin was born, and she does not really know a world without the internet. She doesn't know a world
Really?
without, yeah, I mean, for the most part, she doesn't really know a world without the internet.
I mean,
Um,
I guess it's for me. I didn't get the internet until like 2004, so I think I was like 11 at the time. So I remember like having a Nokia 3310 and like dial up and life
well, but
before.
even that though, I mean, even when it was dial up, it was still like you were dialing into the internet. It's
But
not like
I
the
just
early
remember
days of,
like not internet being like a novelty thing that because we were poor growing up, so like
sure.
not something we had. Like the computer that was in my parents' house was just I mean, it was the black and green,
Oh, sure, of course.
and my mum did
You know,
her entire
and
dissertation
that's
on
the. I
that.
mean,
I was
listen,
like,
I didn't really get a chance to get into. I mean, so I started university at 1995, right?
right.
And what was it, August of '95? And so having this access and being able to go to this stuff was really really cool, right? But
It
you
was
know,
it was more like a kind of like what you see sometimes in those like crime shows
oh
sometimes
yeah,
when like someone goes to the library and like they're
yeah,
going through like old newspaper
exactly,
articles in the
yeah.
computer. Like that's what it used to be like.
But
I
think
don't know.
about, so you turned 10 in 2000.
No, I would have been 7.
7. Oh, sorry, you turned 7 in 2000.
Ish, something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah, so even more so, right? So you know, the internet has always for the most part been a part of your formative years. And
Like it what it okay, so yes and no. Like when I was growing up as a kid, and
mhm,
I don't know if this is because I was a poor kid or if it was just life for us, but I don't remember everyone having like regular access to the internet
sure.
and a computer at home
Okay.
until like early high school, 11, 12. I think I was about 11 or 12 before we actually had a working computer
Okay.
with internet and stuff. But I get it's probably different for
Yeah.
every family.
Yeah, and it's possible. I mean, listen, I mean, we definitely grew up poor, and there are things that people talk about from the 80s like, yeah, do you remember this? No. But and maybe,
Yeah.
and maybe for me, the internet thing is that there's a lot of technology that's been in my family, a lot of
Right.
people working in technology, and being in New York and stuff like that,
Hmm,
it
hmm.
was just but it's like, she never had a cassette recorder.
Yeah.
She had a CD player and then an iPod.
Actually, that's
My
a good point, because I remember cassettes in my mum's house,
Yep,
but I never used one. I used the Walkman, the CD player. That was the first
exactly.
thing I used, I think.
And but I look at your generation that has really spent a lot of time with, like you said, you got to university and Wikipedia was a thing. It wasn't a thing yet when I got there.
Oh, okay.
Um, and I mean, I remember coming out of college and I worked for an e-commerce company. I used to do stuff, and it was a lot of submissions to search engines when it was Yahoo and Lycos and Hotbot mattered and Excite mattered. And at the end of the week, if I had leftover time, I would submit stuff to Canada.com, which was the backdoor entrance to this tiny little thing that nobody cared about called Google. Um, and then, and like all of a sudden things change, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The idea that people are using Apple computers like would make no sense to 20 years ago me. So like you think about that stuff, right? And then I think about, so my daughter will never know a universe without streaming music, streaming television and movies. So I think that you talk about the to tie this all the way back. I apologize. My writing's not as rambling, readers and followers, and so to tie it all back, I think the Wikipedia stigma will also go the way of the ebook stigma. That once a generation comes into play, it's all about who's in charge, right? The reason that you were not allowed to use Wikipedia as a trusted source in university is because of the fact that the people who are in charge said so. When your generation is the professors, and when my daughter is at university, then odds are Wikipedia will suddenly become more accepted. You know, the ebook the concept of ebooks initially, were falling flat originally, but my generation, who oftentimes gets referred to as the Oregon Trail generation, um, because we grew up with computers introducing into and becoming a bigger and bigger part of our world, and like when you look at when the Kindles came out, when the phones came out, when internet came out, for my generation, embracing ebooks has become a big thing. And it's like to be able to turn around to your parents and go, look, you can increase the font size. I mean, my father probably reads more ebooks than I do now.
Yeah.
And that I think it's the embracing of the technology. It's the playing of the games. Listen, I mean, like I said, if this were 20 years ago, Ontario's Ascended would be probably like a email newsletter that I set up, and Terry's Arena I would be doing as a tabletop role playing game.
Which I still
That's
think you should do, by the way.
oh, it's tempting.
You
It
should
is
definitely do that.
it
If it
is
takes
incredibly
off,
tempting.
do it. Do it.
Yeah, it's very
Absolutely.
very tempting. Here, hang on. I've got to take a Danielle. I'm going to need your help turning that into. I have a friend who used to. She owned a board game and role playing um, pub, and she is our dungeon master
Oh,
when we play
cool.
remote Dungeons and Dragons. She is one of the coolest humans on the face of the earth. And if I were ever going to turn into a tabletop game,
That's
to
your
like a true
person.
D&D style role playing game, she's the person who I need to leverage. So, and then I'm gonna let you know. I'll Slack you later, and I'll let you know that I called you out in this. Um,
Actually, that kind of draws me onto something because one of the questions I had for you was kind of what your opinion of sort of science fiction today is. Because
sure.
as you were talking there, it kind of reminded me of Stranger Things and how, they're like playing Dungeons and Dragons. And obviously the
Yeah.
series itself is set in the 80s
Yep.
as the backdrop and everything. But like, it as we said at the beginning of this episode, there's a lot of I suppose that nerdy. I don't want to call it nerdy. It feels like such a negative word. It shouldn't be. It's what I mean. Like to me, nerdy is a like good thing. But anyway, there's a lot of that stuff prevalent in society now, especially in popular culture. And I just kind of wanted to know, like, what's your opinion of like where science fiction is now, and where do you think it's headed in the future?
Where is it now? There's a lot of content, and I think the different streaming services, the ability to self-publish on Kindle, Patreon, there's so much ability to churn out stuff, and like there's some real crap out there. There's some stuff that I've wandered by where it's like I'll just take a flyer and I'll try and start watching something on Netflix. I'm like, ooh, no, never mind. Um, but there is such good stuff to the point where like there are things that are on the sci-fi network that have gotten retired that I'm like, why did you cancel that?
Mm,
I'm part of a group who we're a little more silenced these days because it's too far away from being able to be a reality to come back. But the show Dark Matter, I was stumping hard for season 4 to come back. We talk about how we want our Firefly moment. Like give us our movie to wrap things up. I've heard that they may be redoing a reimagined Battlestar Galactica. The if you I luckily stumbled into John Scalzi and this great series that I've started reading that I'm plowing through, and my wife and I are both reading Ready Player Two, and
that
we're
is
going
a
to be doing.
great movie.
Oh, dude, it's
Fantastic
so
movie.
so the book. Interestingly, the book for Ready Player Two, the sequel, which came out on my birthday. So thank you, Ernest Klein. I knew you did that on purpose. So it's it was a little dark. It started a little slowly, and then holy crap, we are on the roller coaster, and it's like I mean, Timothy Zahn's still putting stuff out, and there's more Thrawn stuff, and like you go, like I said, Patreon gives some really really cool things that some well respected authors can go and do their own thing. So like I support Michael A. Stackpole because he's a god, and yet people don't seem to realize who he is, and that's a shame to me,
Yeah.
and like with what comic books are doing, I think it's so great that there's so much available, and to me it's you don't have to love everything. You don't No one can say you're not a science fiction fan because you don't follow or you don't like or you're it's just I get annoyed by that, right?
Mm.
um and I think it's tremendous because every kind of subgenre that you want to get into. You like space opera, there's something for you. If you like hard science fiction, military science fiction, like there's always something for you. Anybody who has watched Altered Carbon, it's like, holy cow, you get your twists and you get your weird stuff and you get your military. So I think science fiction today it's excellent because of the fact that there is so much. There's a lot of really good stuff. There are a lot of people who you've never heard of who are building cult followings. I might be one of them for all I know. And there's the ability to debate, and it's as long as they don't get angry, as long as they don't get violent, but like there's good debates on Twitter, there's good debates on Facebook, there's good debates on podcasts, and I think that's I think that that's a really special thing that's happening now, and I hope it continues for a long time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. As we draw things to a close for today, do you have any upcoming projects, aside from the ones that we've discussed, or maybe some final thoughts that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. So, I'm hoping to do some really, really fun stuff with Antares Ascended. If the game is funded, everybody go out there and do that. But if the game is funded, then I think I'm going to do some really cool stuff with that, and I hope to, have it go well enough that the game itself could fund the construction of a second game, because I have some other ideas in the universe. And I may get back into like some comic style heroes again in the future. I really dig that, and we'll see. I just honestly, I'm drawing just so much inspiration from watching the things through new eyes with my daughter and answering her questions, that interesting new ideas just germinate so quickly, and it's I can't. I'm working with a guy named Thomas Salerno, who I have started referring to as Dr. Salerno, who's getting into some really, really great, really interesting, stuff that people hadn't thought of, and it's like, oh man, the fact that he's allowed me to contribute anything to his stuff, that hopefully he and I will collaborate at some point, and it's just I just want to keep on churning out fun stuff that people will hopefully enjoy. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about this stuff and so much else today. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show, for talking with me for an hour about Star Wars. I love that.
Oh, absolutely.
But no, all things considered, to everyone listening, to everyone watching the Christian Reeve podcast, make sure that you go out and support this Kickstarter, because I think Gary's done a really good job with this game, with this series. It's clearly very well thought through and very structured. Like I didn't know I knew looking at it that it was clearly, an original idea, and a lot of work has gone into it, but I just didn't realize like quite how much until you laid it out. And it's I'm very surprised it hasn't gained more traction already. So I think it really just is a case of exposure at this point. So anyone listening, please go out there, support Gary with this Kickstarter. Let's try and get him to his goal and get him on the way to making this a reality. But you can straight away check out Gary's stuff via Patreon, at least the novels section. So that's something that is ongoing, regardless. So that's definitely something to check out. And just a big thank you all around for being on the show, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I really enjoyed it. I hope you and everybody watching and listening have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful holiday season for whatever anybody's celebrating.
And to everyone watching or listening to the Christian Reeve podcast, as always, let me know who you would like to see on the show next. Let me know what topics you would like to hear. And I don't know, we're approaching number 50. I think this is number 47. So if you have anything in particular that you'd like to see for that very special 50th episode, let us know. Me and Dutch are working on it. We have some ideas, but I'm not psychic. I don't know what you want. Let me know. Thank you very much for watching, listening to the Christian Reeve podcast. And until next time, peace out, one love. I'll see you in the next one.